40 times. And then, to add insult to injury, if you will recall, he tried to block having to divulge who it is that he met with. Had to go to court, despite the fact that this was making energy policy for the United States of America. The American people, he thought, shouldn't be allowed to know who it is that he's meeting with. So, if we just change political parties, but we don't change our politics, we are not going to see different outcomes. Now, it's easier to understand what I'm talking about when you get out of Washington. One of the best trips I've had since I started running was a trip I took to Oakland, California, the Service Employees International Union that represents basically low-paid service workers, janitors, nurses, home care workers, that they had organized for each presidential candidate to walk in the shoes of one of their members for a day. It was a great idea. And so I went out to Oakland and I woke up at 5 in the morning to go to the home of a 61-year-old home care worker named Pauline Beck. And when I got to Miss Beck's house, she was already up fixing breakfast for two foster kids who didn't have families of their own that she had taken in. And after she got them ready for school, we went over to the home of an 86-year-old amputee. And that morning, I did what she usually does under her supervision, which is to help him put on his prosthetic leg, help this amputee get dressed, clean the soiled sheets, scrub the floors, fix breakfast, do the laundry, clean the house. My wife, by the way, was astonished when she heard that I had a housework. I have the video, though, to prove it. But, you know, listening to this humble woman talk about the hardships of her life without a trace of self-pity, just glad to be of some service to somebody, but also hoping that maybe she could get a little more pay to help those foster kids, hoping that maybe she could have a little more retirement security, hoping that maybe she could get a day off once in a while to rest some weary feet. I was reminded about why I got into public service over 2 decades ago. Because there are millions of people, just like Pauline Beck, all across the country, all across Iowa. There's some right here in Fairfield. People who are working hard every single day, looking after their families, doing the right thing, not asking for a handout, but they're struggling. Their wages and incomes are flat. Their costs for health care, college, transportation have all gone up. They don't know what the future holds for them. They see their jobs leaving the country, and they don't feel like anybody's listening. They don't get a sense that Washington cares about them. And the reason I am running for the presidency of the United States of America is because I want them to feel that somebody's in their corner. I want them to feel like somebody's going to be working with them to achieve the American dream. Last time I was here, I mentioned that when I talk like this, sometimes people accuse me of being overly idealistic. They say, oh, he's talking about hope again. He's so naive. He's a hope monger. It's okay. I stand guilty as charged. I am hopeful about our democracy when it works the way it's supposed to work. I'm hopeful because I've met the American people and they're decent and there's a generosity of spirit there, but that spirit has to express itself through our government. And so I reject the cynicism that has become so prominent in Washington. In fact, sometimes people say, well, you know, Obama, he speaks really well. He's got some good ideas, but I'm not sure that, you know, he's got enough experience, and by that what I mean is he hasn't been in Washington that long. You know, they want to eat a stew, they want to boil the hope out of me in Washington. And I have to remind people, you know, we hope that as we get more longevity in any given place, that we learn more and we understand more. And yet we have to remind ourselves, you know, Dick Cheney and Donald Rumsfeld had two of the longest resumes in Washington and led us into the worst foreign policy disaster in a generation. So a long resume says nothing about your judgment. Longevity says nothing about your character. And I believe that what we need from the next president is somebody with the judgment and character to fight for the American people. And that is the kind of experience that I bring to this race. I've got the experience of bringing people together to get things done. You know, in Illinois, I was able to get health coverage expanded to thousands of people because I got Republicans and Democrats to work together. I've done the same thing at the federal level on issues like alternative energy and arms control legislation. I've got the experience of pushing against the special interests and trying to get money out of politics. Just last year, worked with Russ Feingold to pass the toughest ethics reforms since Watergate, making sure that lobbyists couldn't buy gifts and provide free meals and corporate jets to members of Congress, because members of Congress should be representing you, not them. I have the experience of standing up when it's hard to stand up. Back in 2002, 10 days before the vote to authorize the war in Iraq, I was invited to an anti-war rally. I was embarking on a U.S. Senate race, and some of my advisors said, you know, you shouldn't go, because George Bush is popular back then. He was popular, 65%. The drums of war were beating. Said, you know, if the war goes well, this may ruin your chances to be a U.S. Senator. I told him, I don't want to be a U.S. Senator if it means that I'm biting my tongue and not telling the American people what I think. And those are the kinds of qualities. Being able to bring people together, being able to push against the special interests, being willing to stand up for what you believe in, those are the qualities I think you need from the next president. That's what America needs right now. I think there's another thing another quality the next president needs, and that is a sense of impatience. Now, I'm impatient with being the wealthiest nation on earth and having 47 million people without health insurance. It's scandalous. I know something about this. My mother died of cancer when she was 53 years old. And I remember in the last months of her life, she wasn't spending time thinking about how to get well or taking stock of her own mortality. She was spending time reading insurance forms because she had just taken a new job. And there was some question as to whether the insurance companies would treat this as a pre-existing condition and that she might not get her medical bills paid. She was worried about it. And I was outraged. And I know what it's like to see a loved one suffer, not just because they're sick, but also because of a broken healthcare system. And that's the reason why, as President of the United States, I'm going to make sure that every single person in America has health care that is at least as good as the health care I receive as a member of Congress. And we're not going to do it in 20 years or 10 years. We're going to do it by the end of my first term as President of the United States. It is time for us to get that done. I'm impatient with an education system that still fails too many of our children. We know what to do. If we